The Canadian Film Review started out as a section on Press Plus One out of my frustration that even I, who loves Canadian films, couldn't find information about them anywhere. If I was having a hard time, then probably others were too. So I took to the streets of Toronto to find out what other Canadians thought about our homegrown films. Would you like to talk about Canadian films? No? Nobody? No? Do you want to talk about Canadian films? Excuse me, do you have a minute to talk about Canadian films? Not even? That's so sad. Nobody wants to talk about Canadian films. So we are outside of a theater in downtown Toronto, and we are asking people if they know that there is a movie that is Canadian inside the theater. Let's just wait for somebody and ask. Do you have a minute to talk about Canadian films? Just a minute? 30 seconds? 5.5? I really need a coffee and a Canadian movie. I have a minute to talk about Canadian movies? You don't? They are our country's films! I'm gonna start asking people if they want to talk about hockey. Do you want to talk about hockey? Canadian hockey movies? Do you have a minute to talk about Canadian films? They're fantastic! David Cronenberg has a son! He makes movies too! This seems to be a compelling problem to me. Like, as a journalist, in my heart of hearts, I know we ought to talk about Canadian films more. Excuse me, do you have a minute to talk about Canadian movies? Yes!
What do you want to know?
I want to know if you go to any.
I do.
You do?
I do.
Have you heard of movies like Inescapable?
Yes.
You did?
I loved it.
You saw it?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited. Are you going to go see Antiviral?
No.
Why?
It's Seven Psychos.
No, it's a Canadian movie, Antiviral. Doesn't that sound good to you?
It does sound good, and I do want to see it, but
Aw.
Seven Psychopaths, come on.
I know.
Christopher Walken.
One psychopath. One Antiviral. Hi, what am I sitting in?
This is called an eco-cab.
What is an eco-cab?
It's a three-wheeled tricycle that gives people free rides around downtown Toronto.
Very cool. Do you know anything about Canadian film?
I know it's usually pretty good.
Oh, you're my favorite person today. Why do you think it's good?
Well, I can relate to it mainly. I'm a Canadian, and I just enjoy watching films that expand my perspective on living in Canada.
Do you think it's hard to access Canadian films?
It really depends. I mean, there's lots of Canadian films on some of the Canadian channels, but I think in the theaters, it's for larger shows. Canadian films aren't generally the top draws, and aren't, as a result, aren't the ones that people are going en masse to see.
If I paid you a dime for every cab ride you do, would you just take people to Canadian films?
I would.
Ah.
I would. Actually, I just was taking people to TIFF for the last, in the month of September. So, yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So you get around then all over the city in your
all over
eco-cab.
Absolutely.